November 1519, Tenochtitlan. Aztec King Montezuma has spent 16 years building the strongest nation in Mesoamerica.
He was emperor when the Aztec Empire was at its cultural and geographic peak. It was comprised of 500 city-states and close to 6 million people. And at the center of this empire was the gleaming white city of Tenochtitlan, modern Mexico City. This was a time when the Aztec Empire stretched as far as present-day Honduras and Guatemala.
In the Aztec world, nothing is valued like gold. But just as Montezuma reaches the height of his power, a threat appears at the edge of his empire.
In the 20 years or so after the establishment of Spanish colonies, Spaniards were interested in finding gold.
And that's where Hernán Cortés enters the story.
In February of 1519, Cortés set sail from Cuba with over 500 men, 100 sailors, and 11 ships straight for the Yucatan Peninsula. He makes his way around the peninsula and eventually makes landfall at what becomes the important port of Veracruz.
They landed, and then Cortés burned the ships. And he told his men, "You're not going back to Cuba. You're going forward with me to conquer the Aztec Empire."
9 months later, they arrive into the Aztec capital. With his eyes on the gold, Cortés takes Montezuma prisoner just days after arriving.
Hernán Cortés orders his men to basically rush Montezuma.
They essentially put him under house arrest. And this endures for 7 months, where Montezuma is effectively a puppet emperor.
By June of 1520, the Aztec people reach a breaking point.
One day, Montezuma is addressing the crowd, and they've now really had it with the Spanish. And they feel that their king is a puppet, and they kill him. Spanish then retreat inside of the palace.
Hernán Cortés and the other Spaniards now realize they gotta go. This is not tenable anymore for them to be in Tenochtitlan.
On June 30th, 1520, Cortés makes the fateful decision to flee Tenochtitlan.
Many historians estimate that Hernán Cortés and his men had gathered up to 8 tons of gold. So they had to figure out a way to get at least most of that gold out of Tenochtitlan when they escaped.
This is a seminal example of eyes being too big for your stomach.
Nightfall comes, and they begin their escape. Now, the escape is going well, but then they're spotted.
50,000 Aztecs descend upon Cortés's 500 conquistadors. The Spanish remember what follows as the Night of Sorrows.
You have these conquistadors who are not light on their feet. They're weighed down with gold, many of them falling into the water.
Ultimately, only Cortés and about 50 conquistadors and indigenous allies made it out alive.
Hundreds of lives are lost, and according to some, so is the gold.
So on the Night of Sorrows, many of the Spanish soldiers who died sunk to the bottom of the waters of Tenochtitlan along with the gold they were trying to smuggle out.
But Hernán Cortés survives.
Cortés is eventually able to escape back to another city, Tlaxcala, where he spends months rebuilding his army. And it's with this enlarged army, hundreds more conquistadors, thousands more Mesoamerican allies, that he determines to return for the last time to Tenochtitlan.
The Aztec Empire, which had existed for over 100 years, is over.
Cortés is determined to take back any gold that wasn't lost during his previous escape. But whatever gold Cortés does find, he can't keep all of it.
1/5 of all gold and treasure that was taken by conquistadors was to go back to Spain and to the king. It's thought that about 181 tons of gold was brought back to Spain, and that the value of that would have been around $4 billion.
450 years later, fisherman Raúl Hurtado is working near Veracruz when he makes an astonishing discovery.
Es un día normal como todo, llegué a pescar y me boté en la lancha, anduve buceando y todo eso. Y ya de regreso, pues me topé con la fortuna de ver un pedazo de metal en el fondo del mar, semienterrado. A la hora de sacarlo, lo saqué y pues me lo llevé.
It's a small gold ingot, which Hurtado doesn't think too much of at this particular moment in time. It's just a trinket. But he at least has it in the back of his mind for a while that where there's one piece of treasure, there might be more.
So about a year later, Raúl Hurtado returns to the same spot looking for more gold. This time he discovers 42 pre-Columbian items in the water, which amounted to about 15 pounds of gold.
Tellingly, some of the items are stamped with a C, C for Carlos. King Charles V, King of Spain, Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire. At the time, Cortez was in the New World.
Some of the gold was marked with Carlos V's stamp because he was owed a 20% tax on what was collected. So, to make things easier and more clear-cut, simply mark his portion with his name.
So a lot of people believe that this was a sign that this was Montezuma's gold being returned to Spain.
But if so, how might the fisherman's gold have ended up in the water?
Well, if it was on a boat making its way to Spain, it's very likely that at least a few of those boats would have sunk, or some of it would have fallen off the boats. It's not likely that every single piece of gold would have made it from Mexico back to Spain.
Today, these ingots and the rest of the fisherman's jewels are exhibited in a museum in Veracruz. But is there proof that this gold was part of Montezuma's stolen treasure en route for Spain?
It's a great story, but what it would need is the type of verification we have in other cases, where we have X-ray or chemical analysis, and that has yet to be conducted.
So the mystery remains unsolved until that kind of testing is done.